Over the past few years, I have been learning an expensive and an emotionally wrenching truth. Regret feels worse than failure. If I could go back to my younger self, I would tell her, don't be afraid to fail. Fail faster. Failing can teach you amazing things. Back in college, I worked at an advertising agency in beautiful St. George, Utah. The agency was in the center of town, and I moved to an apartment that was less than a mile away. One day, I decided I was going to rollerblade to work. Let me pause this story for a moment and just tell you that Michelle McCullough is a sedentary lass. And as I've mentioned before, my idea of an Olympic sport is from the couch to the kitchen. I'm attempting to reform this in my older years, and now I exercise 3 to 5 times a week, and I've even run a half marathon in my day. But the fact that I wanted to get on rollerblades and roll to work back then was completely outside of my athletic comfort zone. That said, Michelle McCullough is also daring and a committed lass, and sometimes I like to do hard things just to do them. So I set off on my rollerblades that were my roommates, in my business clothes, with my shoes and a backpack. I hope you can picture this. This was my 3rd or 4th time ever rollerblading. I was an avid roller skater in my elementary school days, and I was mighty good at that backward skate, I might add. But the backstoppy things on the rollerblades never made sense to me, or I was just too uncoordinated to figure them out. I had my own rollerblade braking system, rolling onto the grass. My stroll to the business park was uneventful, and just as I was feeling like I could conquer the world, I entered the business park from the rear entrance. What I never realized in a vehicle is that the parking lot has an ever so slight decline, and as I started to gain speed, I see no grass. Enter dramatic music. To get to my business building, I have to roll around the complex to get to the front of the block, and so I turn the corner at a dangerous speed, and while still processing my decisions, I see an old school, like London-style red phone booth in the corner. And just as athletic ability was not my strong suit, I didn't really excel in physics either. My naive brain says, just roll up to that phone booth, you'll tap it with your hands, and it'll bring your body to a comfortable stop. But my sheer speed had me crash full body into that phone booth, and I promptly fell straight backwards onto the pavement, and it knocked the wind and the humility out of me. And I just stayed there on the ground for a few minutes, catching my breath, waiting for the cars who had just witnessed this great event to pass by before I sat up and they could get a good look at my face. I then immediately took off the rollerblades and walked the final distance to my office. Rollerblading was an utter and embarrassing failure. I could have taken this experiment as a testament to my lack of physical ability and never try anything like this again. Or I could look at it with my experienced eyes and ask myself questions. What worked? What didn't? And what needs to change? These 3 questions are my favorite for evaluating any failure. When we look at my graceful attempt at rollerblading, what worked? Well, I actually did some physical activity instead of taking the car to work. I got some fresh air and I got some exercise. I realized that I needed more training and practice and that I should probably learn how to use those back brakes. Now, what didn't work? Me plus rollerblades equals crazy. And let's be honest, my khaki overalls and business shirt were the wrong tool for the job. So as you look at that, what needs to change? I can still exercise on my way to work and leave the car at home, but I can walk or run in more appropriate attire and maybe possibly change at the office. Simple. I wish I could say this was my only failure. The truth is, I've had a lot of them in every aspect of my life. I'm a make it happen kind of girl. I wrote a book, created a radio show, started a video series, and I've spoken to thousands of people, essentially created a whole brand around those 3 little words. But it turns out that determination alone does not always equal immediate results. I love entrepreneurship, and I've started, sold, and grown, and if I'm being honest, killed lots of businesses. But those businesses taught me a lot, and they make my current businesses that much more successful, and now they thrive. I've said the wrong thing at the wrong time in an important relationship, but I've learned how to be better at communicating and getting to my point and getting it across in a way that doesn't offend. And I've also learned that I'm not weak if I need to say, I'm sorry. I've dropped weights on my feet at the gym. I've eaten a bug that flew in my mouth on a run. And I've also sprayed myself with a can of mace. All true stories. But I have learned that I can exercise without injuring myself, which is a plus. I've spent money on multiple marketing outlets. And yet, when I've asked myself these 3 powerful questions, I can start to evaluate my message better. I critically look at the mediums I choose, and I scrutinize my target market to ensure that I really am hitting the correct audience. Here's another great example of my evaluation questions at work. As a marketing and advertising enthusiast, I love when social media came to the playing field. It gave me fun ways to connect with old friends, and it also gave me new outlets to promote my customers. But when things were really new, I didn't like that some companies were hitting the jackpot while others were just bobbing along. And I didn't like that the answers that some companies were giving me were that they were just lucky. So I set out to create a simple yet effective social media plan for businesses. I used my own social media accounts as test cases. And I tried different accounts and tweets and posts and Facebook, and I tried different links, and I tried different times of day, and I tried different types of content. Some weeks we saw great returns on our engagement. Followers improved and our traffic to our website, and we even got a greater conversion on our events and our sales. Some weeks just flatlined. But every week, success or failure, I asked myself those 3 questions and refined my results. I was also really conscious of the fact that most of my clients were small businesses and even solo entrepreneurs. Without a big budget or a big team, they couldn't afford to spend all day online and still get the rest of their work done. So I was determined to find a routine that didn't take 8 hours a day. And after a few years, yes, years of trial and error, and evaluating every failure for greater results, I created what I now call the social media blueprint for business. And I help experts, authors, speakers, business owners, and marketing managers. And I teach them how to utilize social media in just 15 minutes a day. Sure, there are other programs and systems out there, but this one is tried and true for my own businesses and my clients. Those questions refined me and made my system better. Those questions work in every aspect of life. When I look at the categories used in Ann Webb's Ideal Life Vision, they encompass every aspect of life into 5 succinct areas: personal, professional, health, relationships, and spiritual. Just asking those questions each week for each of these life areas has changed my life and taught me ways to always be progressing. I can look at what needs to change and move things around on my to-do list to lighten a busy schedule or reach out to help someone where appropriate. Simple weekly evaluation helps me create intentional weeks, and I'm much more effective and more productive. That said, even great plans can hit stumbling blocks. But we have to stop looking at those experiences as signs we shouldn't proceed and start looking at them for what they truly are. I call them trials of our fate. Simple challenges that really hit the core of our convictions to test if we really want the results we desire. They happen to everyone. It's the strong and the brave that power through that get the results. So even though I figured out how to dissect my failures and turn them into great learning and improving experiences, sometimes I resist new opportunities out of fear. I've delayed book deals, relationships, employee compliments, meaningful conversations with my husband, all because I was too scared of the outcome. And then in the end, I missed big paychecks, opportunities to improve relationships because the timing changed, and I missed opportunities to boost the self-esteem of others because I censored. This year, specifically, I lost speaking engagements, coaching clients, and promotional deals with major media because I was scared about putting myself out there. I was worried I wasn't healthy enough or too inexperienced, or that people would just think I was plain old lame. I didn't try because I didn't want to fail, and I've learned one of the most important lessons in my life. Regret feels worse than failure. I remember lots of regrets, even dating back to my single digits. I regret not keeping in touch with Alicia Gabica and Crystal Wilcox from Morningside Elementary School in Twin Falls, Idaho. Still to this day, I think of them. I regret not having more conversations with my father. There were times when I said, Dad, let me fill in the blank, watch a movie, talk with my friends, go out with my friends, instead of making me sit here with you having a dumb conversation. My dad's conversations were deep and meaningful, and by the time I could fully appreciate them, he passed away in his 50s. I regret proposals I didn't submit, deadlines I missed, and I always wonder, what would have happened if I didn't let my fear get in the way and I actually did it? I'll never know. I could have still failed, but I would have been no worse off than when I started. But if I had succeeded, how great that would have been. I regret opportunities I was handed to share uplifting messages and simple compliments with strangers and loved ones. I still remember those opportunities and wish I could change them. At least if I try and fail, I can say that I did that. I tried. At least if I fail, I can say that I learned a way not to do something. I love the oft-quoted, "I have not failed, I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work," from Thomas Edison. A man who, if he had given up and not persisted through the trial of his fate, it would have changed our life significantly. What do you need to try 9,999 more times so you can succeed? I don't want that to sound overwhelming, but I want you to start thinking about your failures in a new way. Instead of fearing them, we need to embrace them and jump on the opportunity to learn. The good news is we can also learn from other people's failures. One of my favorite principles in Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principles, is success leaves clues. The truth is, failure does too. Pastor Stephen Furtick wisely stated, one of the reasons we struggle with insecurity is that we compare our behind the scenes to other people's highlight reel. Though some people are more public than others about their trials, everyone is having them. And the world needs more high performers like you to set the example of how to accept failures, dust off, and move on with your head held high. Whether you face a business failure or a divorce, a missed opportunity, a lost sale, a fumbled business presentation, or even all of the above, own it, learn from it, and envision a successful future, and then go make it happen.